Let's talk about fat, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things. Let's talk about the word fat. Fat. Yes, I said it. It's been interesting because it's only been very recently, within the last year or so, that I have started to use the word fat to describe my body. And I use it to describe my body in a totally neutral way. It's the state that my body is in. My body is fat. I am not slim and I am not thin. My body is fat. However, invariably, anytime that I talk in my videos and say, hey everybody, if you're fat like me, I get a slew of comments underneath saying, Holly, you're not fat, you're beautiful. Thank you, and it's so sweet of you to say that I'm beautiful, but when I call myself fat, I am not saying I'm ugly. And I totally understand, because historically, being called fat is kind of like one of the worst things you can be called, not just because you're fat, but because it often carries with it so many other connotations, such as lazy, sloth-like, slobbish, stupid, ugly. To be called fat is not just somebody describing the way you look, but they are also kind of attributing it, easy for me to say, attributing it to, parts of your actual personality. But fat is not a personality. That should be a tagline. Fat is just this kind of descriptor that we can use to describe our bodies. And I feel like that is why so many fat activists, body positivity people, body neutrality, body acceptance people are now trying to reclaim the word fat, and a lot of people use it to describe themselves. And it's not a negative, it's not a positive, it just is. I am fat. And I know some of you are probably feeling very uncomfortable sat there right now behind the screen watching this, thinking I could never call myself fat, or I'd hate to be called fat because it's the worst thing that I could be called. And believe me, I totally get it, because even although I use the word fat to describe myself, and I say to people, no, it's fine, when I talk about my YouTube channel, people ask me, what do you do? And I say, I have a YouTube channel where I have workouts for fat people. A lot of people look a little bit shocked and kind of like, oh, she just said that word, she just said fat. Or when I've heard people describing, what I do, they feel very uncomfortable using the word fat, because we have been taught for so long that it's such a negative word. And I get that, I really do, because although I say that I'm cool with the word fat, and I'm a fat person, I'm a fatty, I'm a big girl, I still don't know how comfortable I would really be if someone was to call me fat, which is ridiculous, I know, but I'm still struggling with it, and it shouldn't be something difficult to grapple with, but I think just the long-standing history of the word has made it so uncomfortable for so many of us that even when we try and reclaim it for ourselves, there is a little bit of a sting, or it feels like there would be a sting if someone was to describe us as fat to someone else. And maybe that's just because we're so used to it having all these other horrible negative connotations to it. So when you're thinking about calling somebody fat, or you're trying to think, what can I call them instead? So of course we've got plus size, but sometimes that's not popular, because when you call someone plus size, it intimates that there's a size, and then plus size is other. So you're kind of othering fat people to be something different from regular people who fit into straight size clothing. So I know when sometimes people don't like to use the word plus size, chunky, fluffy. Fluffy makes me laugh. I guess fluffy's kind of cute. I don't mind fluffy, but I wouldn't call myself fluffy, because I feel like fluffy, for me, these are just personally my opinions on this, is a little bit smaller, whereas I'm not fluffy. I'm more like, I don't know, fat. What's the other one? Oh, chubby. I used to be chubby, but I think I'm about 80 pounds past that. Oh gosh, what's the other one? Curvy. Curvy, for me, is really not how I would ever describe a fat person. Well, not a fat person, an apple-shaped fat person. I am an apple shape. There's nothing about me that is curvy in the correct places. I feel like when you talk about curvy people, we're talking about this kind of sexy hourglass or kind of pear shape. So big boobs, small waist, big hips, which I do not have. I'm just a little fatty apple. I wish I could be curvy, but yeah, it always made me kind of cringe when people talk like, "Oh no, you're just curvy." It's like, I'm not curvy though. To me, curvy has a very positive connotation, and I guess maybe that's my own self-thoughts, or the way I think about myself is kind of negative, and you know, I need to stop doing that. I think we all could do with being a bit kinder to ourselves, but I know I'm just kind of talking things out right now. So I guess the question that I was asking at the beginning of all this is, should you call somebody fat? I think you need to listen to how people identify themselves, and if somebody uses the word fat to to describe themselves, then I think it's appropriate for you to also call them fat, as long as you're not calling it in a negative way, but simply as a body descriptor. But if somebody is saying plus size or chunky or fluffy, then you should just follow their lead. I think there isn't necessarily one 100% correct way, especially right now. There's just not that kind of general consensus, because honestly, a lot of the time, people still are using the word fat to have a very, very negative and dehumanizing meaning. But if somebody calls themselves fat or asks to be referred to as fat, please don't try to invalidate their feelings or how they want to be described as by saying you're not fat, you're beautiful, or you're not fat, you're just a little plump. Because at the end of the day, fat people know they're fat. It's not a secret. It's not like we don't have mirrors. It's not like we don't put on clothes. At the end of the day, this is just my opinion. I don't think there is a one size fits all approach to whether or not to use the word fat these days. So use it at your own discretion. But I'd like to think in the future we will be, not calling people fat to mean horrible things, but just to merely be a description of someone's body. What do you prefer to be called? Do you prefer the word plus size, fluffy, curvy, chunky? Let me know. Does it offend you to hear somebody described as fat? I would love to hear all your comments, so please do make sure you let me know in the comments below. Take care, my darling. See you soon. Bye.